What if your days weren't meant to blur together in a cycle of survival, but to shine with meaning? What if living with intention wasn't just a motivational idea, but the key to unlocking your God-given calling? What if you're not waiting on clarity from God? He's waiting on commitment from you. So many of us wake up, check our phones, race into the day, and collapse into bed at night wondering what it was all for. We go through the motions. We do what's expected. We chase dreams that aren't even ours. And deep inside, a question keeps rising. Is this it? If you've ever felt that, you're not alone. And no, you're not lazy. You're not ungrateful. You're just hungry for more than distraction. You're wired for direction. And that longing? It's holy. Because it comes from the one who created you on purpose, for a purpose. You were never meant to live by accident. You were made to live with intention. But let's be honest. Intention is a word we hear everywhere. On wellness blogs, in productivity books, on vision boards. And while there's nothing wrong with those spaces, real intention, the kind that transforms your life, has to start with something deeper than goals. It starts with God. Because if God formed you, He gets to define you. And when you begin to root your intentions in who He is and what He's placed in you, that's when everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop copying someone else's calling. You stop hustling for worth, and you start living with holy clarity. That's what happened to me. For years I was busy but aimless. I could feel that God had a plan for my life, but I didn't know how to find it. So I tried harder. I said yes to everything. I said no to rest. I kept performing, hoping purpose would show up if I just worked hard enough. But God doesn't reward burnout. He honors obedience. And what He gently began teaching me was this. Intention isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And what matters most is becoming who He created you to be. That shift was subtle at first. I started asking different questions, not how can I do more, but what has God truly called me to in this season? Not what do people expect from me, but what is the Holy Spirit inviting me into? And slowly a sense of calling began to emerge, not in one big moment, but in 1,000 little choices. The decision to spend time in prayer before planning my week, the courage to say no to good things that weren't God things, the faith to trust that hidden obedience is never wasted. This is how you begin to discover your calling, not by forcing answers, but by following God's peace. You listen, you pay attention, you align your intentions with His direction, and you act, one faithful step at a time. Live with intention, discover your God-given calling. Living with intention doesn't require a dramatic life overhaul. It begins with one brave question. God, what matters most today? Not next year, not 5 years from now, today. Because calling isn't something that exists only in your future. It's something you live now, in the ordinary, the overlooked, the unseen. The truth is, we often romanticize the idea of a calling. We imagine a once-in-a-lifetime assignment, a single mountaintop revelation that launches us into greatness. But more often, your calling will look like a steady, faithful yes to the place God has you in right now. Because intention isn't about spotlight moments, it's about surrendered moments. The conversation you have with a coworker that encourages their soul. The time you spend with your children, even when no one's watching. The creative idea you finally act on because you sense God's whisper behind it. These are the places calling lives and breathes, but it takes intention to see them. Without it, you'll live reactive, pulled by opinions, pressure, and fear. With it, you'll live responsive, anchored in purpose, led by peace, and full of courage. And here's something no one tells you. Intention requires boundaries. If you don't define your yes, someone else will do it for you. Living with God-given focus means saying no to what distracts, even if it's popular, even if it's profitable. Because what's profitable to the world might be poisonous to your soul. God never called you to be everything to everyone. He called you to be faithful to what He gave you. And that faithfulness, lived with intention, will unlock things hustle never could. There's a reason Jesus withdrew from the crowds, why He said no to people's demands, why He moved slowly and prayed often. He lived with divine intention. He knew His mission, and because of that, He was unshakable. That same spirit lives in you. So ask yourself, where am I giving my best energy? What am I saying yes to out of guilt, not calling? Where do I feel peace and where do I feel pressure? These questions won't just clarify your calendar, they'll clarify your calling. Because God's purpose for your life isn't chaotic, it's not exhausting, it's not scattered, it's focused, peaceful, powerful. But you have to choose it. You have to be willing to slow down, listen up, and align your daily decisions with what matters most. And when you do, you'll start to see that God's calling isn't something you stumble into, it's something you step into with purpose, one intentional day at a time. The moment you begin stepping into your days with God's purpose at the center, your entire perspective shifts. Tasks aren't just things to check off a list, they become moments of meaning. Conversations feel more sacred. Time starts to feel less like pressure and more like privilege. Because now, you're living with the awareness that your life is not random, it's divine. You begin to see that even your schedule can become a sacred offering when it's surrendered to God. Every hour holds eternal weight when it's infused with intention. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing what matters, what lasts. That's where true fulfillment comes from. Not from being busy, but from being aligned. Alignment with God's purpose doesn't always feel glamorous. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes it looks like faithfulness in places no one notices. But that's where calling is formed, in the quiet, in the consistent, in the intentional choice to walk by faith and not by hype. There was a time when I used to chase every opportunity. If something sounded exciting or looked impressive, I went for it. But over time, I realized that activity isn't the same as anointing. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Not everything that glitters is gold, and not everything that's good is God. Living with intention means asking not, is this possible? But is this purposeful? God isn't asking you to do everything. He's asking you to do what He's called you to, with your whole heart. So how do you know what that is? You listen to the tension between your desire and your peace. You ask God to highlight the assignments that carry His presence. You pay attention to what drains you, what energizes you, what deepens your trust in Him. Calling often lies in the intersection of your passion and His purpose. It's not about fame, it's about fruit. Not about platform, about impact. Not about having all the answers, about trusting the one who does. And the more you live this way, intentionally, prayerfully, courageously, the more you'll discover God isn't hiding your calling. He's revealing it, step by step, as you follow Him. And the beauty is, you don't have to rush it. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need today's obedience, because today matters. What you choose to focus on, what you choose to release, what you choose to nurture, protect, and pursue. Every decision becomes a seed, and seeds planted in purpose always bear fruit in time. And when that fruit begins to grow, you'll realize something sacred. Living with intention doesn't just change your path, it transforms your posture. You stop hustling to earn identity. You start creating from identity. The foundation of your choices isn't insecurity anymore. It's intimacy with the God who called you. You move from striving to abiding, from impressing to impacting, from surviving to serving. Because that's what calling is. It's your unique way of reflecting God's love to the world. Not just on Sundays, not just in big moments, but in how you live, lead, and love every single day. That truth is freeing, because it means your purpose isn't somewhere out there. It's here, now, waiting to be activated by your intention. So what does that look like practically? It looks like praying before planning. It looks like asking God to interrupt your agenda with His assignments. It looks like starting your morning with, Lord, help me see what you're doing, and help me join you in it. Because when you begin to live like that, your days may not get easier, but they will get fuller. Not with tasks, but with truth. Not with stress, but with significance. That's the difference between a full life and a fulfilling life. One is crowded, one is called. And the called life, the intentional life, isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up with your whole heart, knowing that God isn't waiting for a future version of you to use. He's ready to move through the version that's surrendered today. Even if you're unsure, even if you feel behind, even if you've failed before, grace meets you where you are, and grace is what empowers your next step. That's why living with intention isn't a pressure, it's a privilege. You're not working for approval, you're working from acceptance. You're not earning a place in God's plan. You're walking it out with every faithful yes. And those yeses, they add up. Over time, they form a story of courage, a story of trust, a story of purpose, not because you forced it, but because you followed him. So keep showing up, keep listening, keep aligning your actions with his heart, and trust that as you do, your God-given calling will unfold, not as a spotlight, but as a steady flame that lights your path and guides others along the way. That steady flame doesn't just illuminate your steps, it warms the hearts of those around you. Because when you live with intention, others feel it. Your peace becomes contagious. Your clarity inspires. Your choices challenge. People begin to take notice, not because you're louder, but because you're living deeper. And that's what the world is desperate for, depth. Not more noise, not more hype, but people who are anchored. People who know who they are and why they're here. People who live with conviction, not confusion. With purpose, not performance. That's what your calling invites you into. Not a life of ease, but a life of essence. Because true intention isn't about doing the most, it's about doing what matters most. And what matters most isn't always urgent, it's often quiet. It's in the way you listen, the way you love, the way you respond when no one else sees. These are the spaces where character is formed, where calling is refined. And while the world may reward results, heaven honors roots, deep roots. Roots that come from daily decisions to align your heart with God's. That's where spiritual maturity is born, not in fast success, but in faithful stewardship. And as you begin to steward your days with intentionality, you'll find a rhythm, a sacred rhythm that doesn't burn you out, but builds you up. Because now your yeses are chosen, not coerced. Your priorities are guided by peace, not pressure. And your pace is set by God, not by culture. That kind of rhythm leads to resilience. You stop falling apart when plans shift. You stop spiraling when things get quiet. Because you know, God is still working. Purpose is still unfolding. And your job is not to control the outcome, it's to remain obedient in the process. I've seen this over and over again in my own journey. The seasons that felt slow were actually the ones shaping the deepest parts of me. The opportunities I didn't chase were the ones God used most. The intentional pauses, the Sabbaths, the silences, the small yeses, those were the spaces where his voice became the loudest. So don't underestimate them. Don't dismiss the power of a prayerful day. Don't rush past the people in front of you. Don't ignore the nudge to rest when your soul is tired. Because these too are acts of intention. They are how you begin to live your calling, not someday but today. Not once you have it all figured out, but right now, in the holy mess of it all. God doesn't need you to be perfect. He's asking you to be present. And when you are, that's when calling becomes more than a concept. It becomes your way of life. Presence. That's where everything changes. Because when you start showing up fully where you are, with what you have, for the one who created you, your life takes on sacred clarity. Not because you're doing big things, but because you're doing the right things, faithfully, joyfully, and for the glory of God. This is what it means to live with intention. It's not a trend. It's not a self-help slogan. It's the lifestyle of someone who has said yes to divine direction. And when you live that way, you don't have to fear missing your calling, because you're already walking in it. Your steps are no longer driven by fear of failure, but by love for the Father. You're not waiting for the perfect time to begin, because you understand the power of now. You know that your current season isn't a holding pattern. It's holy ground, a place where God is forming you, using you, speaking through you, right here, right now. You are making a difference whether you see it or not. You are honoring God, whether others applaud or not. And you are becoming exactly who you were created to be, not by striving, but by surrendering. That's the beauty of intention. It reclaims the ordinary and fills it with meaning. It restores focus where there's been distraction. It renews joy where there's been exhaustion. And most importantly, it reconnects you to the heart of God. Because that's what this is all about. Not chasing a dream, but following Jesus. Not just finding your calling, but walking closely with the one who called you. And here at Holy Path Insight, that's the journey we're committed to, helping you slow down, listen well, and live fully in the purpose God has given you. Every video we share is designed to stir your soul, speak to your season, and call you higher, not through hype, but through holy conviction. So if this message has spoken to you, don't stop here. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and come back each week as we continue walking this sacred path together. Because your calling isn't somewhere down the road, it's already inside you, waiting to be lived with faith, with love, with intention. This is your moment, and the world is waiting for what only your obedience can unleash. Let's live it on purpose with Holy Path Insight.